And we're live.
Hey,
We're live.
hey.
Hi.
It
it's
is.
still it's still too early in the morning,
Right. Yeah, I still don't have a webcam, so that's a thing.
but you look just like your photo. So it doesn't matter.
Thanks. I tried really hard to make it as close as possible. I'm glad you noticed, Grover. You're so sweet.
Um,
How's everybody's weekend?
so far, so good.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like it to be a couple days longer. That'd
That
be
part.
great. Yeah,
I,
like 2 or 3 days longer would be great.
That part.
Not to brag, but I am off Monday, so
You know what?
I'm going to a concert tonight. So you got to have that pre-recovery day when
That's
you're
Uh,
true.
when you're in your late 40s.
That's true. Who
So
are you gonna go see?
make them suffer. They're a band
Nice.
from Australia. I would suggest to take a listen. They're really good. And I'm not too familiar with the other bands, but Moth to a Flame, if that
Oh
sounds good.
gosh.
Yeah, they're playing with them as well. Avia, or something of that nature.
Okay.
Um, but it's supposed to be a really good show, so I'm looking forward to
I
tonight.
have I have heard Moth to a Flame is really they're really good.
That's what I hear. So yeah, it's going to be, from my understanding, a lot of people are there really to see the other bands, not the headliner. So but no, I think Make Them Suffer will. They've been out for a while. I'm sure they have a pretty good following. So it's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be a
haven't heard of them yet.
pretty packed show. So recommend hearing them.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So we have an early show today for those of you who might not have caught on that we're actually going live earlier in the day than what we normally have. It's because Grover has a concert, but we have a pretty badass guest on today that I'm really looking forward to chatting with. So Grover, why don't you tell us who he is? Tell us all the things.
All right. Well, he's a big, lovable dude. I've known him for over 10 years. One of my best friends. Very talented. We've been in a somewhat of a band, I guess, and projects for over those 10 years. So with no further wait, this is Russell Rotten.
Woo!
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
How are you?
Good, doing good. Glad to be here. Thanks
We're
for having
glad
me
to have
on.
you on. We're super excited. We've been telling Grover like, hey, like when you getting everybody on, like, so I
Yeah.
think this is going to be like a one person at a time. He's just going to go through his band one member at a time, and then be like, what side things you got going on. But I have to say, I have Grover when Grover had originally told me that you had, you were doing RottN and everything, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Like one, I dig the name
hmm
because I think that it when you think about it, you're like, oh, that's kind of a simple name, but it stands out because it's simple, right? But I really think that with how you're going about marketing with RottN is really good. But I was curious as to how you came up with the name RottN.
um. So actually, it's a. It has to do with actually my dad. Growing up, my dad would use Pig Latin. We reverse the
mm.
words and the letters. And so my first name is Russell. My middle name is Scott, and he would reverse it into Scuzzle Rot. You know, just
Yeah.
just doing a thing dads do. And so when I was trying to come up with a reformer name, I was just trying to think of something that was connected to me or to my past or anything like that. And that just popped into my head, the rot part of it, ROTT. Um, so from there, it was just as simple of just like adding the letter N to it and then turning it into rotten, which was a pretty unique spelling of it, ROTTN. And then, yeah, so I'm a big fan of simple band names. Sometimes those things are a little easier to remember. Some bands like to have a full sentence as their band names.
Mm-hmm.
think one word band names are a little easier to remember, and logos and stuff like that. It is easier to market.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I was always curious because I always thought it was a really cool, like, it was different. And it was the way you spell it. And it was different. So I was like, I wonder how you came up with that. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I also dig the succinctness of it. I'm right there with you. Like, there's this one metal band out of Scotland, Buried Within, or
Mhm.
something like that. Anyhow, the point I'm getting is that whenever you get in too many letters, too many words, you lose it
Yeah.
sometimes. So yeah, RottN.
And people end up abbreviating it anyway. Like if you take the band like Motionless in White,
Yeah,
it's always abbreviated MIW. You know, people don't really type it out. So
Well,
exactly.
the name
That's
also
true.
fits the style of music,
Mhm.
on there pretty well. So that's what I
yeah,
was.
yeah, for sure.
So how would you describe your style of music for anybody who hasn't heard it before?
Well, that's interesting. It started off as an experimental side project. So the first songs that I did, I started this back in 2017, and the songs were of a more experimental nature, weird sounds, and it was all electronic. There's a little more guitar in it back then, but it was like weird hip hop beats and lo-fi stuff and dance music and just whatever I was kind of into at the moment. I would just kind of mix it all together. And I tried to put everything into it that wasn't like in my metal bands. So it wasn't metal oriented or heavy oriented. It was a way for me to express a different creative side of my personality. But from there, it has grown into being more of an industrial dance project, I would say is the closer way to put it now, which means lots of electronics, a good four to the floor beat, and just catchy stuff behind it, really.
That's pretty awesome. So I guess kind of coming off of that, like what inspired you to kind of do something a little different and to make something a little bit different than what you do with, say, X Codex?
I have a lot of different types of music that I'm into. Like right now, I've actually been on a show tunes kick, which is crazy. But I do listen to a lot of different stuff. I listen to everything from heavy metal to electronic music to all the various branches of both of those. Um, I mean, pretty much the only thing that I don't really listen too much to, I guess, would be modern country. Although I do have appreciation for older country, like older Johnny Cash type stuff.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, and so when you get in a band, a lot of times in order to focus the songwriting or what to coalesce, if you have different band members, there's going to be like certain stuff that is like the basis that all the band members are into.
Right.
And so some of the stuff that I may want to write or do or experiment with is going to be too off table for that. And so that's where I like to start other projects or work with other people. And that's really where RottN came from, was just to be able to experiment and do stuff. As far as a songwriter goes, I find it healthy to be able to like use those experimental songs to try different writing techniques, to try different like programs and mixing techniques and stuff like that, which some may fail and some may succeed, but either way, I learned something. And then a lot of times I'm able to bring the benefit of that learning back into X Codex, our metal band, where I can apply those in a more meaningful way, I guess. Whereas with RottN, since it's just me, if it doesn't work, no big deal, because it's just me. If people enjoy it, they enjoy it. If not, I move along,
That's a really good outlook to have. That was actually one of the questions that I was going to ask you is, as a performer and you're doing the solo, like how do you go about getting those types of, maybe even mixed reactions? Like some people love it, some people hate it. So that's pretty cool that you have that mentality that, some people might
Yeah.
like it, some people don't, and just kind of keep doing what you love doing regardless.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I found a pretty good home with the industrial sort of electronic community. There's some pretty good Facebook groups out there that are pretty tight knit, and there's a lot of DJs in there. There's a lot of people that. One of the benefits of the music that I'm doing outside of metal, I will say this, is that with heavy metal, you really are limited to being able to either play it live yourself or reach out to maybe like some influencers or people that show music videos and stuff like that. But
Right.
with the electronic dance music, I have the added benefit of being able to reach out to DJs who will add my songs into their DJ mixes, whether they do them on Twitch or whether they do them live in a club. And so they're spinning my songs in their dance mixes for people to listen to and jam out to, which is another avenue that allows me to reach new fans that is not an avenue that metal has. Like there's no DJ out there spinning metal stuff for metal dudes to bang to alone in their home, you know? But like the DJs that do the dance music do that.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, it's cool because I've gotten actually DJs in England, Germany. I do pretty well in Germany, actually. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you talk about that a little bit? Like, what's that like to be like, man, like, hey, I'm doing pretty good in Germany. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've met a couple of DJs and performers out of England. One is his name's Matt Hart, and he does electronic music himself, but he also does DJ Twitch channels. And I met him through another DJ. I just shared my music in one of those Facebook groups I was talking about, and he saw it, liked what I shared, and said, "Hey, man, I want to feature you and your song on this Twitch night that I'm doing." And I was like, "Sure, absolutely." And I shared it to some other people, and they liked it. And then from there, there was some people in Russia actually that liked my electronic stuff. So they've got some DJ Twitch channels there that they've been spinning me on, and also in Germany. So yeah, it's been pretty cool to know that like people in other countries are hearing stuff and liking what I have to offer. So
I'm waiting for Russell to plan a tour for Europe.
yeah. I would love to go to Europe. So yeah, electronic music is very big in Europe as well. There's a very big like hunger for it over there. So
Japan. I'll just name all the places. Hopefully you take me along.
Yeah, man.
You need Russell, a roadie. Grover's got you.
You are right. There really is not a whole lot of that in the metal community. There is a little bit on social media where like, like if you're friends with another band and they put out new music, you share it on socials and everything. But otherwise, there really is not a whole lot of sharing inside the metal community. One of the things that I have been wanting to see is for one of the local bands to cover another local band's shit.
Yeah.
That is something that I've always wanted to see, like just one time. I've been in this music community here in Tallahassee for a long fucking time. I've never seen a local band cover another local band. But you're right though. Otherwise, there really is not a whole lot of sharing within the metal community.
Yeah, and that's a shame, because the metal community has a lot to offer. On the other hand, though, I do see that it's the nature of the music. I mean, if you were to go to a club and just have a DJ spin metal stuff, nobody's going to go out and headbang and mosh to, songs coming on over the sound system that are not being played live.
Yeah.
And DJ, the electronic music, the dance music, people want to dance and they need the music to come over the PA lot, So it does offer another avenue. And I find that a lot of people are into more than one type of genre. So if they like what I do electronically, if they like my voice, then if they dig deep enough, they'll be able to find X Codex and the metal projects that I've worked on easy enough. And, maybe it'll bring in new fans that way as well.
There was one artist here in Tallahassee, and he was doing like a individual deal where his music was all like grindcore, right? He's like a DJ, but everything was very grindcore. I can't think of a band to give an example of, but you probably get the point. The point that I'm getting at is that it didn't go very well. It really did not go over very well at all. So you're absolutely right in that sense.
It's the atmosphere, though, that you create. Like with Russell, it is like a live DJ when he performs, you know,
Mhm.
with the music, people are dancing and things like of that nature. So it's just, you know, he's right. You know, I never been to uh, a bar where there's a DJ performing. It's always like the jukebox, or they have Spotify on and they're just sitting at the bar with their beer, you know, nothing.
Yeah.
That's just the atmosphere that music brings when it's not played live, you know.
Mhm.
So
Hey Russell, do you feel any pressure to bring energy whenever it's just yourself playing versus playing with a band? Do you feel any pressure in that sense?
Yeah, man, it is actually a little bit different of an experience when you're playing on stage with your brothers in a metal band or sisters. um you have your friends up there. The audience has more than one thing to look at. So I mean, we all know bands that, like, the guitar player stands out because he's so crazy on
Yeah,
stage,
yeah.
or maybe they have a crazy bass player,
or
or
the
the drummer's
keyboard
just phenomenal.
player, you know.
Or
Yeah.
keyboard player.
Or an
No one's looking at the
amazing
keyboard
keyboard player.
player. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
He's just cute. That's all.
And so when you have people on stage with you, there is a little bit more, like, there's been times where I've looked over at my guitar player or Grover, anybody on stage with me, and I'm like watching them because they're going crazy.
Yep.
So it gives the audience a little more things to catch their attention and focus on. So if there's a moment where I have to catch my breath for a lyric or something, and the guitar player's going crazy or playing a solo or jumping up and down, it does take the focus off of you to that other band member.
Yep.
So when I perform RottN live, Grover usually backs me up on that, and he comes out and plays phenomenal keys and stuff for me. But it is essentially just me up there singing and stuff like that. And at first it did feel a little awkward because I'm so used to having other people on stage
Exactly.
with me
Exactly.
that I'm up there and I felt a little naked. I felt a little raw. And there's actually even been a couple of times where Grover didn't go on stage with me and I was up there literally by myself. I have some friends that do rap hip hop sort of events.
Yep.
And there's not really a setup time between all of that. So, but given the nature of my music, I could just have them play the music and then I could just sing to it, like that way. But I swear the one or two times that I've done that and I was up there like literally just by myself was more nerve-wracking than being on stage in a band opening for a national in front of 500 people.
Sure.
Yeah. So it is a little bit raw like that, but I enjoyed it, and it was a really fun way to perform and learn some new things and get some new confidence and gain an appreciation for when I do have my band brothers up there. Yeah.
I certainly have a certain amount of respect for like the front guys of the band, especially the front guys that are not playing an instrument. Like I'm a guitarist myself, right? So I've got my guitarist to put my little bit of my attention to. But no guitar, I don't fucking know what to do with my hands. And want to put my hands in my pockets. All right, we're going
right.
sing. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck to do. So
I know.
Those guys.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you kind of like learn how to be able to go up there and entertain. And a lot of the lyrics that I have, I end up doing like what you're saying, like hand gestures, something. So if I'm talking about somebody, I'll point at the crowd or put my fists in the air, that kind of a thing to keep it entertaining. And then also with RottN, we on stage we have some like lights and stuff that I trigger as well, and then I have like a little stage setup with some scrims and logos and stuff on it. So it's not just there's a little more to it than just me up there by myself with a MIDI controller in front of me.
That's awesome. So what got you into being a vocalist? Like, when did you first realize like, hey, I could actually like do this?
I would say that it goes back to when I was a teenager. I think the first time that I said I want to be in a band or I want to do something like that, I believe it was when I was watching Stone Temple Pilots. I was I was like 16 or 17, and they came through town, and I went to the concert with my friends. And I just remember watching, Scott on stage and just being like, fucking, wow, look at this guy. He's going crazy. He's dancing and he's singing and he had a microphone and, all the stuff that STP does. And I was
Mhm.
just like, wow, that's amazing. The way that he was able to control the crowd, the way that he was able to sing and dance and do all that kind of stuff was pretty cool to see. And I was like, I want to do that.
Scott Weiland,
Yeah.
almost on the subject that we were just talking about, that is an excellent example of a frontman that
Mhm.
was able to control the crowd and be an entertaining
Yeah.
visual.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's what inspired me when I was a kid. I mean, if it would have been, I want to say Cheap Trick opened for them, if I'm correct.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was
Wow.
really weird to have them open up, and the "Want You to Want Me" song is the only song that I knew from them.
Yeah.
And then STP comes on, and then he's just killing it on stage. And I think that was the moment I was like, wow, look at this guy. He's like possessed up there. If you ever seen STP, the way that he dances and moves while he was singing is just crazy. His
Mhm.
legs are moving in this really weird sort of elastic way, and it's just like, wow. So seeing that, I said, that looks amazing. I want to do that. I want to get on stage. And from there, I started writing like, lyrics and poems and stuff like that. And I didn't really get into it right away. It was still 2 or 3 years before I joined my first band. And mainly I would just drive around in my car and then throw on some bands that I wanted to sound like that I really enjoyed, which at the time was Fear Factory was one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Another one was Spine Shank. And I was just really into the really aggressive heavy metal with keyboards type stuff, which that's what I do now. So no surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Fear Factory was a big one. Learning to scream like Burton Bell was like how I developed my ability to scream and have a rougher voice and stuff like that. So
So on that topic, talking about your screams, how difficult was it for you to learn to control your vocals like that?
Not hard. Mainly in the beginning, it was just about achieving the grit and the volume. So just kind of
Right.
pushing my voice as hard as I could push it. But I had to learn that if I do that, it'll sound well on a recording. Like, if you're spending the afternoon recording a song or something like that. However, when I'm trying to perform for 30 or 45 minutes on stage, if I were to scream at that max volume and intensity, I tend to blow out my voice pretty quickly within 20 or 30 minutes.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. So then if I'm not careful, by the end of the set, the last 5 or 10 minutes, I can be my scream can become weaker because I pushed it too hard in the beginning. So as I've gotten older, I've learned that I have to do vocal warm-ups before I go on stage. So a lot of times before we go on, I'll run out to my car, truck real quick and sit there and kind of do vocal warm-ups and sing with a couple of songs on the radio so that I'm not pushing it full volume just yet, but I'm opening up my voice. And then when I'm on stage, there's some other stuff you can do on stage. You can use the natural distortion of the mic, which will help your voice a little bit. Sometimes you'll see singers cupping the mic. A lot of times when they're doing that, right. A lot of times when they're doing that, it will add in that extra distortion. However, it makes it hard for the sound guy to be able to, mix you properly because it'll cause feedback issues. So what I've tried to do is learn to be able to use that distortion on the microphone live while not pushing my voice too hard and not cupping the mic. So there's kind of a little technique to doing that.
Yeah. You should hear Russell warm up to Adele. I mean, voice of an angel.
Set fire to the rain.
Yeah.
From what I understand, now granted, I've never taken any fucking voice instruction ever, but what little bit that I've read on it, you really shouldn't be pushing. Like, you really shouldn't be pushing too much on the whenever you're screaming or hell, singing in general. You really shouldn't be pushing it too much. If you're having to push it, you're gonna fucking blow your voice, man.
Exactly. And that was something that I had to learn over time. Because you start off really well and you're the first couple songs in your set and you're like, yeah, and then by the end you're like, ah. It's not great because a lot of times we save the best for last, like our most popular song or our heaviest song that people will get down to. Usually we want to end that on the set because well, when you're playing, a lot of times people will be there at the beginning when you go on to see what you're about, and then in the middle is when they tend to walk off and go get a beer. But a lot of
Mhm.
times, if they're into you, and then people are like, "Oh, this band's really good," you'll start to draw them in, and then so by the end of your set, you'll probably have your strongest crowd if people are into it and they like you, and so that's why we tend to put our most popular song towards the end. So if my voice is out on our most popular song, that's not a good sell.
You have a good point.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been doing RottN?
I started it back in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for a minute.
Yeah.
So out of that time, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned with going from doing the band thing to kind of doing your own thing? What was the biggest lesson you had to learn?
Um, I mean, probably the performance lesson of having to be on stage performing on my own versus having, 4 or 5 guys on stage with me. The reverse of it is I've also learned that on my own with RottN, there's good or bad, there's a more streamlined process for me wanting to put things out. With a band, everybody's in on it, everybody's putting in on it, everybody's time and money are on the table. So you really have to be respectful of that when you're in a band and go around all the band members, make sure everybody's okay with, a merch design, make sure everybody's okay with
Right.
where they want to play, when they're available to play, whether or not they want to put this song on the set list, whether or not they like that song or this part of that song. There's a lot to consider when you have multiple opinions coming into something. And so that's why being in a band so hard and bands break up so often, is because opinions really just clash a lot. So being on a solo sort of artist thing, I can really just, if I feel good about it, if I like it, if I'm happy with it, then I just put it out and hope for the best. So yeah, because there is the other flip side of that coin, whereas having a band and having everybody check your opinion can be a good thing. Sometimes you write something you think is incredible, and if the other 4 guys look at you and they're like, "Bro, that's not very good," you really have to be willing to trust your bandmates' opinions on that. Like, they've got opinions
Right.
too, and they listen to music and they have favorite bands, and so sometimes when you think something's really good, you may come to discover that the rest of the band's like, well, like, it's okay.
You were talking about had to deal with other people's opinions. I have always been the solo guitar player in all the bands that I've been in, and the reason for that is because I don't fucking care what the other guitar player has
Yeah.
to say about it, and quite frankly, I don't want to hear it. And I don't want to play their shit, and I don't want to hear, well, let's do this instead of that. No, I wrote this. I'm going to play it exactly how I wrote it. And so for that reason, I've always been the solo guitar player. And I've always been very thankful for bass players that just played along and
Right.
didn't input much on it.
Absolutely. When in bands, generally there has to be 1 or 2 people that are the songwriters, and then the rest of the band be the guys that either play or add to that. It's the whole too many chefs in the kitchen thing ends up.
Exactly.
It'll do 1 of 2 things. It'll cause conflict, or it'll slow down the writing process to a crawl. Because if everybody has to okay every little part, then you end up with like a System of a Down and not putting anything out.
Wow. Shots fired.
Yeah.
Shots
But
fired.
it's true. If every person has to approve every little note, every little beat, every little thing, like, it's hard to come to conclusions on that. So a lot of bands will generally have 1 or 2 songwriters, and then the rest of the band will add their parts to it, or their change ups and stuff. And like, that's what for example, in our band X Codex, I try to do is I generally, I'll write the demos and the songs for that, and then hand it to the guys and say, hey, add to it, improve it. If you like the bass part here, or you like the guitar part here, you change it up a little bit. And that's with the understanding that, like, I don't think that they're going to come and just dismantle it, and like, because that would be kind of pointless. But if they want to change up little rhythms here, if they want to add stuff to it, if they want to be like, oh man, this part would go better in front of this part, I'm absolutely okay with that. One of the reasons that I become okay with that kind of stuff over the years is because I try to write a lot. I feel like if you've only got 2 or 3 songs you've written, you become very protective over those 2 or 3 songs, because that's all you have. But if you have 20 songs, and you can protect your 2 or 3 babies, but then the other 17, you're like, yeah, do whatever you want. It's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
Yeah.
I want to talk about subject matter. If I didn't misunderstand you, you said that you write poetry a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's how it started. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
lyrics are poetry, so yeah.
Okay. So, one interesting thing that I think as far as lyrics are concerned. So, do your lyrics, do they have to rhyme, or whenever you're writing, is it just kind of stream of thought and whatever you put on paper sticks?
I am fond of rhyming.
Okay.
I will say this, I don't always try to do like end of word rhymes. So that means, in other words, like sometimes it could be, I could have, for example, 3 lines and then rhyme the last of the third lines.
Sure.
Right. So I try to use different rhyming schemes like that. As a vocalist, I will say that rhyming helps because certain letters, like if you end on an ah or e or a o, those correspond better with notes. So if I end a word on an o, like do or to, and then I try to rhyme that with an e, well, e's tend to be like a little higher, as far as notes.
Oh,
Right. So if you end on a
wow.
yeah, so if you end on an O on one line and end on an O on another line, then it's easier to match those 2 notes and have them both go back if you're an A or a B or C or whatever you're singing in.
Wow. I've
Yeah.
never thought or considered about how the syllable, I guess,
Will affect the
where it
note.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
I mean,
never
of
thought
course
about
you can sing a or like you can sing O and A B C D F G up and down the scale,
that. Yeah.
but there's a natural cadence to people's voices to where
Yes, there is.
O's or E's or A's will end on certain tones, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah. yeah. And so lyrically, I do try to do rhyming schemes like that. I'm a big fan of that stuff, and it does help stick lyrics into people's brains. So that's always a good thing if they remember your song.
Gotcha. Another question I want to ask you now. So this is about subject matter, right? And so if the answer is I'm not going to answer that question, that's your answer. No worries. But do you have any? Is there a subject matter within your music or within your songs that you think might surprise people?
That might surprise somebody. Yes, actually, there is. So most music is written out of human emotion, obviously.
Exactly.
The typical human emotion that you will find in rock, metal, angry electronic music is going to be the other sides of emotion. So frustration, anger, resentment, pain, anguish, sadness. Those are the things that people tend to write about because people tend to like to listen to those songs because usually it helps them process those emotions that they're having in their own life, right? So what is typically off-putting to people in our genres is happy music. So if you write something that's lyrically just like about having a happy time, it almost feels disingenuous because you're coming from this emotional place that is not supported by what you're listening to. Now, that being said, I do think that one of the things that could get through that is comedy. I do feel that there's a lot of like rock and metal bands out there that write funny stuff that is adjacent to happy. So given that, yes, actually there is some subject matter in my lyrics that would surprise people. I actually wrote a song about my dog.
Did you really?
Yeah, on my latest album that I just put out, it's 6 songs and then about 7 or 8 remixes. Shout out to Mr. Grover there who did one of the remixes.
Hey.
Yeah, he did a good job. So on that, I have a song called Dockel, which is German for dachshund. So spoiler alert, I have wiener dogs. I have dachshunds at home. And yeah, I have songs on there that are relationship oriented. I have songs on there that are about my views on society and stuff like that. But I didn't want that to be all the subject matter because I don't feel like that's just what I am. I'm not just an angry or frustrated or sad or preachy person walking around. I'm a happy person too. You know, there are things in my life that I love and enjoy, and so I'd like to share those with people. So I did write a song about my dog called Dockle, and the verse lyrics are somewhat reminiscent of, I don't know if you're familiar with the song "What Does the Fox Say?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So they're a little reminiscent of that in the way that it's more the verses are more descriptive of like the personality of how a dachshund is. And then the chorus I actually sing in German.
No shit.
Yeah, I translated to the chorus to German so that I could sing it and make it a little different. And it took on sort of a Rammstein sort of a feel to it because of that.
I love that so much.
Yeah. So I went in there and two, to kind of throw people off the trail. Like if you don't speak German and you listen to the song, it may not be exactly evident what I'm talking about. I mean, obviously they could just Google the lyrics and be like, you know, like, why is he talking about dogs barking at the wind? So, and you know, I do feel that my hope is that someday when I'm playing that song, that I play in front of people, somebody that can speak German. I mean, Germany would be great, but like, you know, somebody here in the States, whatever, and they just come up to me after the show and they're like, "Did you really just sing a song about your dog?" And I'm like, "I sure did." Yeah,
Russell, everything that was, I want to thank you, genuinely thank you for that answer. Everything that you said was exactly why I asked that question. You know, our music is inherently a little aggressive, and there is a lot of anguish and depression or whatever the case is in throughout the entire genre of rock metal, very generally speaking. And every now and then somebody likes to throw in that curveball that is completely unexpected, from out of nowhere. So that was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the best songs to play too. I like it.
Yeah, it's funny to me too, because a lot of times some of the crowds that we play in front of as RottN are like goth and industrial crowds. So you're seeing these people dressed in solid black makeup, lipstick, you know, stuff like that. And I'm singing a song about wiener dogs on stage. and I just there's just something beautiful about that juxtaposition, that contrast, you know.
Exactly.
Like, oh, that's so great. You know, here are these sad, typically sad goth people, and they're dancing, and I'm singing songs about wiener dogs. Yeah, they gotta have fun, awesome. You know.
100%, you absolutely do. So you did send over a video for us so people can take a listen. So do you want to talk about what it is and what it's about before, or do you want to wait till after?
Can we do after?
Yeah, let's do after. Let's I could say this is not the wiener dog song, so that's not the one we're listening to.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about it afterwards, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So for everybody tuning in, here you go.
Defend humanity, to protect us, not to slaughter us and make us your prisoners. Slave.
From the eyes of the dead, another moment of dread from the things that they said. Another past to repeat from the page of defeat. Another death to another dream. They tell you what to think, they tell you what to see, they tell you what you should believe. They tell you who to hate, they tell you what is fake, they force feed our loyalties.
I know all about humanity. I know its treachery. I know that your species will not tolerate my existence. Mankind and its arrogance and self-delusion must believe they are the nearest to God.
I can feel the world getting smaller again. I'm done, I'm numb. I'm not the only one that can feel the truth I decide, because I know wrong from right. And one day you'll become someone under the thumb of fear and greed of love.
Slave.
I can feel the world getting smaller again. I'm done, I'm numb. I'm not the only one that can feel the world getting smaller again. I'm done, I'm numb. What have I become? I can feel the world getting smaller again. I'm done, I'm numb. I'm not the only one that can feel the world getting smaller again. I'm done, I'm numb. What have I become?
I loved it.
Yes.
All righty. Thank you. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about the recording process. So is this something that you recorded at home? Did you go to a studio? Can you talk about that maybe?
Yeah, man. So I I consider myself a producer. So and of that I mean that I'm able to write, record, mix, and master my own stuff if I need to. I won't say that I'm amazing at all the hats, but each one of those is their own job. Mixing a song is its own job, mastering its own job, and there are people that study those processes for years and years to get good at them. So obviously, if you're, you can do all trades, but you're master none sort of thing. I would consider songwriting my strongest suit, and then mixing and mastering were born out of necessity. Those things are very expensive to get done. And ultimately you're kind of left with two choices. You can either pay somebody else to do it, which again can be very expensive, or you can learn the processes yourself. And I'm still learning. I would say that my mixing has come a long way over the last 5 to 7 years. My understanding of things like frequencies and compressors and just all the stuff that goes into that. And then mastering, luckily there's a lot of tools that are available nowadays that help kind of close the gap in that. A good mastering process usually has a lot of like what's called outboard gear, which means they're actual physical pieces of equipment.
Yep.
With knobs and dials and stuff on them. Programs on the computer that emulate that can get close, but the differences I discovered is the way that electronic waveforms are pushed through computers versus analog pieces of equipment. And I could get into that all day, but basically a computer kind of shaves off a little bit because of the way that it processes audio versus how like physical equipment does. So anyway, that's one of those things that computers do help get you close to that without having to, spin an arm and a leg to get that done. So yeah, I do all the recording here in my own studio here at home. All the vocals, I do all the programming and writing and keyboard playing and all that stuff here. With our metal band, I tend to start the process here, but then we end up having to work with other producers or go into studios and stuff like that. A lot of that has to do with having a drummer. If you want your drummer to be able to input or have a good sound, usually that's going to require a studio. And if you're already going to be in the studio for the drummer, might as well record everybody else. But RottN I tend to do at home. This is more of in my personal studio space thing.
The reason I asked, it sounded very, very professionally done. I thought the mix was great. I thought that all the levels were on point. Everything had its own little place. Like every note, the vocals, the keyboards, like everything had its own little place, right? And I felt like everything was here.
Yeah.
There might have been a little bit of jumping out here and there, but it was when appropriate for that part, in my
I
opinion.
agree.
Yeah. Also, the female vocal part that's about a quarter of the way through. Is that a sample?
No, that's actually my voice, and I used a.
Oh no,
Yeah,
it's
no,
not.
no, yeah, no, you're okay. Yeah, no, no. I use a vocoder, and I have several different voice altering programs that I can use on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was going for a. Well, there's two things going on there. You might be referring to a sample, like when it said the word slave.
I couldn't quite catch what.
Okay, so I do have some samples in there that are of a female voice, like at the beginning and the middle, that are speaking. Those are samples that I took out of. Actually, they're from the most recent Terminator anime.
Ah,
Yeah,
Nice.
if you watch anime, there's a really good Terminator cartoon that's on Netflix, and I love the whole Terminator series. I love sci-fi. I've since I was a kid, I've been into that stuff. So, but yeah, it's a really good series, and it has a lot. There's a very good debate between an AI computer and the man that invented the AI computer, and they're having a debate about the way humans act versus the way an AI would act and stuff which I thought was very relevant for what goes on in today's world and stuff. So that sample is in there, and that's a female voice talking. And then in the chorus, I do have a backup a vocoder effect on my voice that is very robot-y, good, synthy sounding. So there's that on in there too.
very cool. Very, very, very cool.
That's awesome. So can I ask, what is your favorite song that you've written?
Favorite song that I've written so far. There's two that I have that. Okay, so about a year ago, I put out a single called "Suffocate," and that single was really the turning point for how the type of stuff that I'm doing with RottN now and the success that I'm having with it. And that song, it was one of those things where, like, finally all the lessons that I'd been learning about songwriting and mixing and stuff over the years had finally coalesced into something that was like, okay, this is a catchy song. This is a good song. And when I perform it live, people are into it. Like, that's another way to test the metric of a song. You can think a song's amazing at home that you wrote, and then you play it live and everybody like gets bored with it. And you're just like, oh man, I put my heart into that and nobody's into it. And then sometimes a song can surprise you. Sometimes I've written songs where I wasn't sure how a crowd would respond. And afterwards, people rush up to me and they're like, what was that song? That was amazing when you were singing about this. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that would resonate. And it did. So, yeah.
Happy little surprises.
For sure.
That is very cool. So, okay, the video. Can you tell us about the song? What made you write it? What was your inspiration behind it? All of it.
Okay, so the song is called Necrocortex, which is another way of saying brain dead. And ultimately, actually, I wrote it about a year ago. And like I said, I have songs in my repertoire that are like, I don't focus on one subject for RottN. So there's songs in there that I have are about interpersonal relationships and things like this. And this song was really just about a viewpoint that I have towards society in general, and the frustration that I have with, and I think a lot of people share, of people just not using their heads. I think emotions tend to get very high in society, and a lot of times, as we're human beings, our emotions will override our thought processes because we feel very strongly about one subject or another. And without going into any political stuff or anything like that, it doesn't matter which side of a line you fall on, you feel emotions because you're human. And so a lot of times the failure to see somebody else's point of view has to do with the fact that your emotions are so high and the way you feel about something is so dialed up that you can't take a breath and step back and like, you know, listen to somebody else's point of view or logic or anything like that. So in the chorus of the song, it says, I can feel the world is getting smaller again. That's basically my way of saying that with people get frustrated with each other and they turn their backs on each other and they stop communicating and sharing ideas. Yeah, you're not growing the world, you're shrinking the world. You're making the world a smaller place for people to live in because now we're not exchanging ideas. Everybody's living in an echo chamber of what they already believed.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I wrote about a year ago. But I feel, you know, that regardless of what anybody believes or what you know side of anything that they fall on, that they could probably identify with the lyrics of how they feel about that. Which is ironic because everybody's like, yeah, I can understand. I feel that. Like I can relate to that. And at the same time, everybody's still doing the same thing. So, you know, it's like crazy that everybody's like, yeah, but like, I'm not going to stop doing that. So, and that's why in the video, there's a lot of imagery of like brains and skulls and like, you know, CT scans and stuff like that. So, it's just, you know, I do all the video work myself. I also do video editing and things like that. And so on that, you know, just the imagery of all the brains and stuff like that is just, you know, part of the whole package of, you know, the brain dead and not using your mind and not sharing ideas and not listening to other people's ideas and things like that. So it's pretty much where all that came from.
That is awesome.
Russell, I know you and Grover have known each other, I think you said for 10 years?
Yeah, longer than that. It's like 15.
Okay, so you guys have known each other for
I'm trying to
a
keep us
minute.
young, Russell.
We've been jamming together since 2011, so 14 years.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Any memories that you care to share between the two of you? Embarrassing, funny?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Going back 14 years ago, I can remember this guy coming over to my apartment and bringing over his keyboards and sitting on my couch. And we had another friend, and his name's Jesse. He goes by Grim, but he was a bass player too. And the guys that I was trying to start something new. The guys I've been jamming with in the previous band were working, and same thing for them. And spoke to us like, come on over, let's start something new. So we started jamming on a new band idea together, and it kind of grew from there. We had met playing shows, you know, his band and my band, both were on the same bill. And so that's kind of how we met. And come to find out, his band and my band had similar ideas and roots musically of like, you know, being like heavy and using electronics and keyboards and stuff like that. So as far as memories go, I mean, we've got a lot over 14 or 15 years. Some of the more funny ones that have stood out with me from him for me are I do remember one time we had a birthday show from Mr. Grover here, and we were playing at our.
I don't remember.
We're playing our local bar, and this is probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And just so I don't drink anymore. I used to drink a lot, and I quit about 8 years ago. And so this is prior to that because I was still a drinker at that point. And it was his birthday show, so we had a cake for him and like put a whole show together, 3 or 4 bands, and you know, of course, you know, it's his birthday, so everybody's like, hey, let me get you a beer, let me buy you a shot, hey man. And so by the time it came for us to play around 11 or 12 o'clock, this guy right here is just 3 sheets to the wind. Yeah, he's like, yeah. So I'm like, hey man, we got to get on stage. And the funniest thing, and I will never forget it, as the stage was about waist high or a little right at that. And so I'm a pretty tall guy, so I could just kind of like put my leg and hike up. Grover, not so much. So he walks up to the stage, and like I'm like watching this happen as he's walking toward the stage and not slowing down. And he gets to the stage and just bends over and like rolls over onto the stage, like just like rolls onto the stage onto his back. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, yeah. And so he gets
one way to do it.
Yeah. And so he gets up and he's like, I'm ready to play. And then the song just walks over to his keyboards. And I was like, all right, this is going to be a fun show. So, yeah. we've got a lot of memories like that. Stuff has happened. We played a show together once where I was bending over to pick up my guitar, and I ripped my shorts all the way down my leg. And so I had to play and like hide the fact that my boxers were showing. Luckily, I wear black boxers, but like, man, that was a rough one. With like, I'm not talking a little rip. I'm talking like from the zipper all the way down the pant leg, like my thigh was showing.
It was.
Oh wow.
Oh man, and it was just crazy. You got to play the show. Like it happened right when the intro music was coming on, so there was no stopping at that point. There's no like, hold on, guys, let me run down to the truck for 10 minutes. Like it was over at that point. So we had a lot.
Today, I think 8 years ago, we were on a little bitty tour.
Yeah, we did a mini tour through Texas.
Yeah, and then we went to Roswell. A little break there. So those good times. Facebook gives you those Facebook memory flashbacks.
Yeah.
Today,
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's tons more, but yeah, we've been around the block a couple times.
Yeah, our beards were a little darker.
So I guess one, thank you so much for coming on the show and for hanging out with us and for talking to us. It's been really awesome to have you on and talk about
thank you guys.
Both being the band life and then of course doing your own thing. But what do you have coming up for RottN? Anything big happening?
So my plans this year, I do have a show coming up in a couple of weeks here in San Antonio. That's going to be my birthday show. So yeah. So that's going to be a fun night. I've got some friends from all over the state playing. I got some people that are coming from down in the south by the border that are coming up to play. Some people from Dallas are coming to play. And then I got some friends here in town that are going to play. I got some DJs coming from Houston. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And as far as music goes, I do have that lyric video. I'm going to be putting that out tomorrow morning. So I wanted the exclusive to be here first for you guys.
Ooh,
yeah. And then I am going to be working on some actual live videos. I've got some ideas for a couple of the songs on my new album where I'm going to be filming actual full live videos for it. And then just playing shows throughout the summer. And, if I get a chance to work with other artists, I do have a album of sort of instrumental music that I think I'm going to put out on Bandcamp here in a couple months. That's just kind of the kind of stuff you could, play video games or clean your apartment to or whatever. So that's stuff's awesome. Pretty cool. And I do have some more singles and some more music in the mix that I have got to write some vocals and stuff to that I haven't gotten to. So hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have another EP or some brand new singles out by the end of the year.
Awesome.
That is awesome. And where can people check out all your stuff?
Absolutely. So you can find my stuff on any digital outlets or retailers. So, Amazon, Apple Music, all that stuff. You can find it on YouTube. I do have a Bandcamp, RottN. It's Bandcamp /RottN. Facebook, Instagram. I got all that stuff going on too. So I just got to spell it right, RottN. A lot of times it tries to correct it and throw an E in there, and then you won't find me. So yeah,
notice that.
Yeah,
I was looking for you before the show. I was like, guys, I cannot find fucking anything.
Yeah,
help a brother out here.
Yeah, so Spotify, I'm on Spotify as well. Yeah, so RottN, and you'll find me.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody that's tuning in, go check him out. Show support. Happy early birthday, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I hope you have an awesome birthday and I hope you have a great show for your birthday. And again, thank you so much for being on Off the Record. It was a blast having you on.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. It's fun talking to y'all.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, Rob, you ready?
Off the Record Podcast.